public. Those people interested in participating in future meetings can register to participate electronically by completing the online delegation registration form at kitchener.ca/delegation or via email at delegation@kitchener.ca. So for those of you who are interested in accessing the meeting live stream video, it is available now at kitchener.ca/watchnow. So another note, consent items that were previously on this agenda have now been rescheduled for the June 20th, 2022 council meeting. And we will head right into discussion items. So just a reminder to all delegations that when you are called upon, you will be asked to, or I ask you now, when you're called upon, to please turn on your video and microphone. And we ask everybody to be respectful in their comments. And one last reminder for delegations that please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This, of course, is council's time, and this, in this case, in our committee's time, to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. We're going to start now with 4.1 class environmental assessment for the Upper Hidden Valley Pumping Station in Force Main. And we will start with a presentation from staff, Ms. Katie Wood. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, committee members and residents of Kitchener. My name is Katie Wood, and I am the project manager for the Upper Hidden Valley Sanitary Pumping Station and Force Main Environmental Assessment. The region's River Road project is set to unlock lands in the Hidden Valley area that will be zoned through the Hidden Valley Secondary Plan run by planning. Because of topography, sanitary pumping station will be required to remove wastewater from the developing lands and pump it to the nearest trunk sewer. Various locations were explored through the proposed sanitary pumping station and force main, and a technically preferred alternative has been identified. The study will identify a sanitary servicing solution and will support reasonable development in the Hidden Valley area. I would like to take this opportunity to now pass it off to Gemma Charlebois and Dave Wilhelm from MTE, and that will take us through the presentation of the EA project.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thanks for that introduction, Katie, and through you, Madam Chair. We appreciate the opportunity to present to the committee as we near the conclusion of the Upper Hidden Valley Sanitary Pumping Station Class EA. Slide. So this is the problem statement, and the Class EA was to support development in the Hidden Valley area as outlined in the Hidden Valley Land Use Master Plan that was adopted by the city in June 2019. The EA was intended to identify the location of a sanitary pumping station and its associated force main. The preferred solution maintained the objectives of protecting the environment with minimal disruption to residents and the surrounding area. We engaged a broad range of stakeholders. And finally, we documented the study according to the Class EA process. Slide. This is the Hidden Valley study area. I understand that most committee members are familiar with the Hidden Valley area. And due to the topography and the number of creeks that bisect the area, it was known that a pumping station would be required. The study area aligns very well with the Land Use Master Plan study area, with the southern portion being mostly already developed and the northern portion being the undeveloped area. We understand that there is ongoing secondary planning processes in place currently, But this EA, it's important to note, this EA was based on the land use master plan from 2019. Slide. Now I'll hand it over to Gemma to discuss the options that were identified and evaluated.
So this particular slide shows all three of the potential pump station locations and the associated force main and sanitary sewer alignments. Location A is in the northwest part of the study area. And then continuing clockwise, location B is in the eastern portion of the study area. And finally, location C, southwest portion of the site. So the gray areas represent the lands, again, in accordance with the land use master plan that Dave just spoke about, that would be serviced by gravity sewers that would outlet to the pumping station located at potentially one of these three locations. All of the proposed or all of the potential pump stations would discharge to the trunk sewer at Wabanaki and Hidden Valley Road, which would then be redirected to the wastewater treatment plant. The gray striped area that borders Hidden Valley Road towards near the Wabanaki Hidden Valley Road intersection would be able to drain directly by gravity to the trunk sewer without having to go to the pump station first. The hatched areas, there's three of them. They represent lands which at this time, their land use is under review as part of the City of Kitchener's secondary planning process. Slide. Each of the servicing options, so each of those pump station locations described in the previous slide were evaluated according to the criteria presented above. The natural environment, which was assessed during the environmental investigations completed as part of this EA, the social environment, which is the effects to the local community, heritage cultural impacts, which were assessed during the archaeological and heritage investigations as part of the CA. City operations of the pump station and the linear infrastructure, the technical feasibility to construct and operate the pump station and linear infrastructure in those locations, the servicing potential, which is how much of the available designated land can be serviced by that particular option, and capital costs. Some considerations in evaluating each option, effects on surrounding plant and animal habitat, water quality impacts, noise, odor, the aesthetic in the surrounding community, nearby structures or landscapes of heritage significance, ease of accessibility to the site by operations staff, by emergency personnel, what regulatory approvals is required to construct in this location, how much of the land designated for development in the land use master plan can be serviced by this location, and what is the cost to construct. Slide, please. Each option was evaluated for each of the 7 criteria, utilizing a scale of least to most desirable. Each criteria that was previously mentioned in the previous slide was weighed equally, and the evaluations are shown above. They are the average of all the criteria for each option. Scores were averaged across the project team, which consisted of MTE consultants, the City of Kitchener, Grand River Conservation Authority, and the region of Waterloo. And as shown in the above table, option 2A was ranked as most desirable of the options, followed by 2, 4, 3A, and then lastly 3. Slide. The preferred alternative shown here is option 2A, which is to install the pump station at location A in the northern portion of the study area, with parts of the service area able to drain by gravity. This option received the highest points for technical feasibility and for lowest cost. So this figure shows the pump station location, as well as the force main and sewer, potential sewer alignments. The area in gray would be serviced by the pump station location. The area in blue may be serviced in future by the proposed new pump station at location A, pending the land use review by the City of Kitchener, and this would be via a private pump station in this location. The remaining areas in pink and green can be serviced directly to the Wabanaki trunk sewer at the Hidden Valley Road and Wabanaki intersection, and to the River Birch pump station, which is located south of River Valley Road. Slide. And that completes our presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Singh, I see your hand up. We do have other delegates as well. Do you have any quick questions of clarification? Councillor Singh, you're muted. Oh, his hand's down. Okay. All right. So we'll go back to Councillor Singh first. Oh, there you are. Hello.
My apologies. Can I see that map up again? If that's okay, it'll help guide my question a little easier, make sense of them better.
Okay. The one from the report, right?
Yes, please. So thank you. So, there was another one, that's the one I was looking for, with the future sanitary sewer, where it ends at a certain point of Hidden Valley Drive. Within that gap, is there consideration to link it all?
That's a question for staff or the consultant. Go ahead.
Whoever is best to answer.
Through you, the chair. I'm not exactly sure what gap you're talking about. If you can explain that a little bit better.
So if you see kind of the beige brown, whatever you want to call it, that marking along the roadway of Hidden Valley Road, and in some parts of it is marked, and the other parts it's still white. Is it more specifically because of gravity flow and that part can't have a sanitary connection, or would that be a future connection down the road? If you look at the marking for future sanitary sewer, that's the marking I'm talking about, the marking along the roadway.
Through the chair, the location of the force main and gravity sewer shown on this slide are potential locations and not the detailed design location of these services. The services are intended to be within the River Road alignment up to a certain point. And then after that point, it would go into a proposed subdivision, which is not designed yet or not proposed yet.
Okay, Ms. Wood, I think I'll help to clarify my question a little bit better rather than specifying the outlining of the map. There are parts of the Hidden Valley, I guess, subdivision that doesn't have sanitary connection. Parts of it does existing, that's already developed, and some of it doesn't. More of the estate homes that are the bottom part of this map. Will they ever have a sanitary connection related to the proposed work, or they will not be serviced because of the, I guess, the grading and the gravity flow doesn't doesn't necessarily benefit with the proposed pumping stations within the report.
Through the chair, thank you for clarifying. There are parts of the southern portion of the Hidden Valley lands that are serviced by the River Birch pumping station, but the remaining existing lots in that area are serviced by private septic systems, and it's not intended that that would change through this study.
So what was that ever looked at to see how they can be captured as, to ensure sensitivity to, our water recharge area, and having sanitary, private sanitary connections is not always the most effective way. Was that ever even looked at and see if they can be captured in, or it's not feasible? If ever, even down the road, it may not be feasible because of the grading.
Through the chair, some of these areas are able to be captured as part of the River Birch pumping station, as the River Birch pumping station did look at a larger area. However, this specific EA is not intending to take additional flows from the existing lots in the southern area of the Hidden Valley location.
Just quickly within my remaining time, is it related to the engineering or cost that they're not being captured?
Through the chair, I don't believe that we looked at the cost of having that section captured. I know that there's significant topography differences in this piece of land. And I believe that those specific lots would be better serviced to the River Birch pumping station list, which is at a lower elevation than where the proposed pumping station that we're proposing here for this project is.
I see Mr. Dave Wilhelm is also queued in. Maybe you have additional information.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Katie, at the end of her explanation, did capture most of what I was thinking, is that it was not a cost issue. It was mostly a technical issue, that basically those existing lots, the estate lots that are on septics, can't be serviced by any of these locations, any of the options that were considered. And it's all because of the topography of the area.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Does that clear it up, Ms. Councillor Singh? Yeah, okay, great. All right, thank you. Next we have a delegation from Ms. Hannah Domagala, Peter Benninger, and Jeff Martins from Pearl Valley Development Corp. Welcome.
Hello. Is Peter here? He was going to start.
People are just being added into the panel, so we'll just give them a moment. If the delegates could turn your cameras on when you have a moment, please. There we go. Great.
Am I
Welcome.
on?
Yes, we can see
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Peter Benninger, president of Pearl Valley and owner of the land surrounded by Hidden Valley Road that we're part of the servicing EA discussion today. We have many years of working in cooperation with the city and in this planning process. We support the work that the city's undertaken for this future use of our lands, and in particular for the mixed use and residential purposes. Through the community plan, the city acknowledged the development of all areas, including our East Field. During that process, the designation of the East Field changed from green to white. We are diligently working on all our Hidden Valley lands, and in particular the East Fields, carrying on hydrogeological and environmental studies. Pearl Valley needs this EA to reflect our work and the city's community plan to give certainty to these directions. In general, we support staff's recommendation of this EA with some concerns that will be addressed by Hannah Domagala of Pearl Valley. Jeff Martins, our engineering consultant, is on hand should there be any technical questions of him. I'd also like to note today my disappointment in recently learning the secondary plan process completion has been now delayed to the end of 2023, early 2024. Just last summer in a meeting with staff, the date was revised to the end of 2022 to early 2023. We feel the secondary plan could have and should have run along with this environmental assessment together. Having said that, Pearl Valley looks forward to working with the city to move the process along in the near future. Thank you, and over to Hannah.
Thank you. I will be brief as well. Like Peter said, we have had discussions previously with staff and generally support this EA, but would like to focus on a couple of outstanding issues which are important to us to mention in this EA. So as part of this EA, it is also suggested that our Eastlands, which were the blue on that map, so that future potential serviceability lands on the east side of our lands, it said that they could also potentially be serviced by septic tanks. We know that they are the least desirable environmental solution for the lands, but I guess we can keep them for now as an option as well. But I would like to focus on the planning perspective and to reiterate that the EA must not only reference, but make explicit provision for the servicing of all the lands which are designated in the official plan and are developable. A reminder that the Eastlands, which the EA calls future potential, are designated residential in the OP, and to do otherwise would be prejudicial to Pearl Valley and might seem like predetermining the outcome of the secondary plan. Therefore, it is not only required, but also prudent and most cost effective, as we know, for the city to consider servicing of all developable lands as part of this EA. With minimal effort today, we can save a lot of money in the future and avoid costly and impactful tear up of a newly constructed major road, which we know River Road extension will be, and through which the sanitary sewers enforcement are planned to go through. There's also no need to wait for zoning to be put in place, as staff suggested in the last letter to us, to complete further servicing solutions. Not only is this unusual, but in discussion with staff over all the years, we have been informed that it is this EA that will provide input along with all the other technical studies for the land uses and technical and the zoning for the secondary plan. So from a good planning perspective, especially now in the midst of a regional official plan review and discussions about land needs, it is worth noting that servicing of all developable lands in Hidden Valley are critical to sustainable and responsible development of the entire city, which this council so strongly focuses on. It is this site in Hidden Valley that can provide significant new affordable housing, and that's how the CA should be focused. So 5 points to finish. One is that we all know that we are still reviewing the land needs required for the SPS, and should we have questions, I mean, it's a big document, we'll come back in a week to council. And I would like now 2 things of staff to confirm and 2 things of council to ask. One is for staff is to confirm that the location of the proposed Upper Hidden Valley sanitary pumping stations, it is noted in the document, is only conceptually shown in the ESR, and its exact location will be confirmed during the subdivision process. And we would also like staff to include the section of the Eastfield outside of the southeast of the Jefferson salamander habitat that is already designated residential in the official plan into the maps to color it in. It's that little piece of land that keeps being forgotten that is very important to us. And to conclude, we ask council to give direction 1, to illustrate in this EA that the location of the force main within the Hidden Valley River Road extension, so the force main that will service the Eastlands, to be actually put into the EA and written as such that it will serve in the future via the existing road. And then give direction to construct this force main to the Eastfield concurrent with Hidden Valley River Road extension works should they proceed development. So this will, like Peter said, give certainty and kind of provide direction that it will be written in the EA, that nobody will question in the future, and that will have already a good backbone in planning for the planning process for the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your delegations. And it doesn't appear that we have any questions for you at this time.
Can staff, sorry, Madam Chair, could maybe staff confirm and kind of answer my one question that I had at the beginning?
Well, I mean, staff already did confirm in her comment that the location of 2A is really just conceptual. And so, sure, we can ask her to say that again.
Sorry, I must have missed it, sorry.
Okay.
Through you, Chair. Yes, the location of the pumping station is just conceptual, identified in the ESR, just so people had a little bit more idea of what it would look like or the location of where it could go, but it's definitely just conceptual.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so again, those are the questions. Thank you very much for joining us today. And now we'll go to questions of staff. Councillor Gazzola, you're first.
I really wasn't going to ask anything of staff. I have one minor thing, but I would like to move the recommendation that's before us at the appropriate time. If I can just ask staff, how many meetings were held? How long has this study been going on? Katie, maybe you could answer it.
Through the chair, I definitely don't know the exact number of years that this study has been going on. This particular project was started in late 2019, and in 2020 we had the consultant hired, and I believe that the DC project identification was done previous to that for many years. So perhaps Hans.
No, that's sufficient. I just wanted.
Okay.
I was more interested in the EA for the pumping station. So they've been going. It's been going on for a couple of years. How many public meetings were held?
Through the chair, 2 PICs were held, as well as this project went to the environmental committee twice and to the regional environmental committee as well.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify, that there have been a number of public meetings before this meeting right now. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gazzola. Next, we have Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. My question is with regards to the delegation and from the staff presentation as well, is the blue area that is with the future with the pumping station. Why is that not being included in the current pumping station? Like, why are we not building that capacity right away, right now, instead of waiting for what it is to determine?
Through the chair, the mandate of the Class EA is to select a sanitary pumping station location and force main route to service lands identified in for development while balancing environmental and other impacts. Servicing potential was just one set of the 7 criteria identified in our evaluation process. So when we were evaluating all 3 options or option locations, we did assume that parcel of land was completely developable. And I believe Hans has something to add to that.
Go ahead, Mr. Gross.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The pumping station where it's being proposed on the northeast side will have capacity to serve any flows that may come from the blue area, so that the station itself would not be built without having that capacity. One thing to remember is timing. The timing of the development and the timing of River Road are somewhat down the road. River Road is being developed to the roundabout in 2024 by the region. And we will have enough information to be able to construct the city's infrastructure in that area at that time that the region builds the road. The region's timeline for building the rest of River Road is in the order of 2026, 2027. And we will have a better idea at that time just what sort of infrastructure might be needed for the blue area and where it might go. Bottom line is that the station that we're building will have capacity for that blue area, no matter what that might be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This has been moved by Councillor Gazzola. Are there any other questions before we move to comments? I guess, yeah, so go ahead. We can queue in for comments, please. Seeing no comments, I'll just add my own. I just want to just respond to the question about secondary plans. Absolutely. You know, there have been delays on the completion of secondary plans, but it's certainly not unique to this particular location. Our staff have been overwhelmed with a lot of applications coming in, and our staff are working very, very hard on the completion of all of their work projects. And so I would just comment that we just need to remind ourselves that the pandemic threw a wrench in a lot of our plans, and we just need to be patient. All right, so with that, it's been moved by Councillor Gazzola. All in favor? And that carries. All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have Bean Drive, the traffic calming review, implementation approval. And we will have a presentation from staff on this topic. Welcome, Mr. Ryder, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the committee and chamber. My name is Steve Ryder, and I'm one of the traffic planning analysts with Transportation Services here at the city. And I have been leading the Bean Drive traffic calming review. And I'm joined today by Aaron McCrimmon-Jones, our manager of transportation safety and policy. And in this quick presentation, I'll give you an overview of the Bean Drive traffic calming review. Next slide. So this slide just illustrates the traffic calming review process that we apply to all our formal traffic calming reviews. The process includes 4 phases. Phase 1 is identifying the problems and opportunities. Phase 2 is focused on design. Phase 3 is presenting the preferred solution to residents and council. And finally, phase 4 is construction and implementation. The overall process includes a number of engagement efforts, including notification letters, 2 surveys, 1 public meeting, and a dedicated Engage Kitchener project page, which is active and updated throughout the entire review process. If council approves staff's recommendation, the traffic calming measures will be implemented roughly summer, fall of this year in 2022. Next slide. Bean Drive is a collector roadway that is designed to collect and distribute traffic to and from the local roadways and the arterial road system. This slide shows the study area, which is highlighted in yellow, and includes the residents that would typically use Bean Drive on a daily basis. The blue area on the screen highlights the roadway sections that were studied for traffic calming measures as part of this review, which is Bean Drive between Maxwell Drive and the current terminus of Bean Drive, as well as Maxwell Drive itself. And it includes the residents that are directly fronting the impacted area along Bean Drive, Maxwell Drive, and a small section of Old Huron Road. Originally, the study only included Bean Drive from Old Huron Court to the terminus of Bean, but throughout the design process, we decided to expand the scope of the study area due to potential impacts from the proposed traffic calming measures along Bean Drive, and that expansion included a small section of Old Huron Road and Maxwell Drive. Next slide. This slide summarizes the existing traffic conditions within the study area. As you can see, the 85th percentile speed ranges between 53 and 59 kilometers per hour. And the 85th percentile speed is the speed at which 85% of all vehicles are observed to travel at or below. And the average daily traffic volume on the street can range between approximately 2,500 to 4,600 vehicles per day, depending on the area. Next slide. This slide shows the reported collision history along Bean Drive. So from 2016 to 2020, there were 22 reported collisions that occurred along Bean Drive. About half of these collisions involved a single motor vehicle, while the rest were either rear end, angled, or turning movement collisions. Next slide. Staff conducted an initiation survey in May 2021 and asked residents whether they were supportive of initiating a traffic calming review for Bean Drive. The initiation survey results were below the minimum required support rate by approximately 5%, but 85% of respondents were in favor of initiating the review. And as you can see on this slide, staff conducted another survey in February 2022 and asked the residents whether they were supportive of implementing the proposed traffic calming plan. As per the City of Kitchener traffic calming policy, a minimum of 50% of the directly fronting residents must respond to the implementation survey, and at least 60% of those respondents must be in support of the recommended plan in order to meet policy thresholds. The final survey response rate for addresses directly fronting Bean Drive was 34%, which did not meet the 50% minimum participation threshold. However, the survey showed an 86% support rate among directly fronting residents or addresses, who answered the survey. As a result of the high support rate, staff are recommending that the traffic calming plan, which I will present in the next few slides, be implemented. Next slide. So these next 3 slides illustrate the proposed traffic calming measures for Bean Drive. We are proposing a total of 7 traffic calming measures that are evenly spaced out in order to achieve a calming effect on traffic along Bean Drive and Maxwell Drive. The plan includes, number 1, a speed cushion on Old Huron Road, just west of the intersection of Old Huron Road and Maxwell Drive. Number 2 is a speed cushion on Bean Drive, located just west of the intersection of Bean Drive and Old Huron Place. Number 3 is a speed cushion on Bean Drive, located between number 73 and number 77 Bean Drive. And number 4 is a speed hump on Maxwell Drive, located in front of Brigadoon Park. And this is to discourage potential cut through as a result of the other measures on Bean Drive. Next slide. Number 5 are pedestrian improvements at the intersection of Bean Drive and Black Walnut Drive in the form of sidewalk and crossing enhancements. Number 6 is a speed cushion on Bean Drive between Marl Meadow Drive and McLeod Court. Next slide. And finally, number 7 is a speed cushion on Bean Drive located between Mitten Place and Kilkerran Crescent. With all that said, that concludes the quick presentation. Thank you for listening, and we're here to take any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have some questions for you, Councillor Michaud.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marsh. First, I want to thank staff for all the hard work they put into this. It's been a long project, and I'm really happy to see it come to council. I have a question with regards to the intersection of Black Walnut and Bean Drive. When you said enhancements, are you talking just painting on the sidewalks, or is there something more that's going to happen there?
Through the chair, so there will be repainting of the lines, but there will also be an addition of a crossing facility with some extra sidewalk added on the south side of the intersection. as well as updating all of the sort of sidewalk that doesn't have the tactile plates that help provide the accessible crossing needs.
Okay, well, this is great. This is really great to see. I know when they put the speed humps along Bechtel, it certainly changed a lot of the speed, obviously, and traffic patterns and everything. So I'm really happy to see this. I was surprised there wasn't as many citizen engagements as I thought there would be along that area, because there has been a lot of conversation amongst residents for or against. Can you kind of elaborate on some of the comments that you got?
Through the chair, generally we found that, like as the numbers supported or illustrated, that residents were generally in support of traffic calming measures. There was a bit of backlash to a proposed measure, a traffic circle at Kilkerran Crescent, which we looked at, and we ended up modifying and turning that into a speed cushion. There were some engineering difficulties with that as well in terms of drainage. So that also led to the change of the measure.
Okay, thank you. And again, thanks for all your work.
All right, thank you very much. We have some questions from Councillor Gazzola. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions on the whole project. I think it's what I would have expected. My only concern is around the standard we use, where when 50% don't respond, we're sort of setting that aside. And as I'll note with the next topic on our agenda, there are people that are concerned that we have this standard that isn't being met, and we still go ahead and do it, and then we're not really listening to what the public are saying. Now, I just to add to it, I know that I can understand what you're doing here. Like I just did a projection, like on the second part of the study, to get 50%, you'd need 85 addresses to answer. So that's another, you're 28 short. But if half of them responded positively, you'd be up in the 74-75% category. So I gather that's what you're basing your decision on, even though it doesn't tie in with what our stated standards are.
Through the chair, for staff, we look at our empirical data. We take into consideration resident feedback and, of course, the votes and what the ratio is in terms of those who support and those who don't. And it's our job to provide a recommendation to council through our engineering lens, given what we're seeing on the network here. So it's our job to give you that option in our recommendations, so council's in a place to make an informed decision about it. But I would note, in terms of the stats here, those opposed to the changes on Bean were very low at 3 opposed to initiate, and only 8 opposed. 3 opposed to initiate, and then 8 opposed to implement the plan. So the opposition was quite low.
Are those all your questions, Councillor Gazzola?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report. My question is actually along the same lines. I mean, I'd hate to say that we might have to adjust what the percentages are, but when we only have like, I believe it was less than 43% of people come out to vote in a provincial election, maybe maybe these projections are too high in terms of what we're expecting from people. But to go along with that, do we also roll out an education plan at the same time whenever we're going to make these major changes in a neighborhood? Is there something as a follow-up that would then go out to the residents, or even even something that we can be pointing them to let them know what's coming.
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, so we will communicate with residents the outcome of today's decision, informing them of next steps, which both includes construction and then our follow-up studies, which will come next year to determine how well things worked, and if there's still support or what level of support there is for the changes that were made, and if further changes need to be implemented. So communication will continue. In terms of education, I will point to our Vision Zero plan in terms of the amount of citywide education we're doing and that we're planning for the coming years.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's really important as part of the follow-up, especially when we didn't get the numbers that we thought that we should be getting. So that's great. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. You know, when I see a median speed of 59, that's pretty scary. So I'm really in favor of this going forward. Just a question about the pedestrian crossing improvements. Will there be signage around that as well, close to where the crossing will be?
Through the chair, the improvements there are mainly around what's already existing and then improving the sidewalk that's in that area. So installing additional ramp, additional panels, just to make it an easier transition for people who want to cross at that specific location. We're not adding any additional traffic controls at this location in the forms of an always stop or a PXO.
Okay. And then I think I know the answer, just want to ask anyway, will there be, like, after this is done, will there be the signage that goes up that says this is a traffic calm neighborhood as they enter the street?
Through the chair, yes, that's all part of our signage plan. So once the plan is finalized and approved, we come up with a signage plan that would be based on all the measures we're including and any other additional warning signage or cautionary signage that may be appropriate. I'll also note too that the intersection with the pedestrian improvements is already an always stop. So it's not like it'll be a protected crossing with the always stop. It's just enhancing those facilities.
Okay, thanks for that extra information. And as someone who's been involved in the work you do and, the meetings and the information, the results here look really solid. So good work.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Before we go to second round, I just have a question. So with regard to speed cushions and speed humps, I've heard different responses from staff at different times about how effective they are in calming traffic. And I'm just hoping that staff can clarify, why is it that this particular case resulted in so many new speed cushions and speed humps, whereas other locations in the city where members of the community are looking for that type of thing, it's not recommended?
Through the chair, or to the chair, speed cushions were specifically designed and developed for emergency response to mitigate any potential impacts to emergency response times. Bean Drive and Carindale are primary response routes. So we didn't have the option here to look at something like a speed hump. Now, in terms of the expected speed reductions that we can expect at these two different types of devices, a speed cushion is quite effective. We've seen 85th around the mid 40s. A speed hump is our most intensive form of traffic calming, and we've seen 85th in the high 30s to low 40s. So having said that, emergency response is critical to ensure that we're not impacting their response times, which is why we decided to go with the speed hump or speed cushion design along Bean Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Michaud, back to you.
Thank you. I just had one more question that just came to mind with regards to the three-way stop. Is there anything else that was considered at that location? There was a person that was hit at that location, and there's a lot of, I'll call it, rolling through the stop sign and not coming to full stops. Is there anything that can be done to force, remind, encourage, or just kind of make people aware that they really need to stop there, not roll through it?
Through the chair, the entire traffic calming review process, I think, is going to help raise awareness for the folks that are using this road. And as we've mentioned through our project meetings with residents and with council, our intent here is to try and establish a calm, consistent speed throughout the entire course of the road. So we want to see drivers driving at 40, low 40s, all the way through Bean. And if we can create that calmer environment, I think people are going to be more likely to come to a complete stop, and it may encourage more people to use other forms of transportation in the neighborhood if they feel safe, all of which is going to lead to more compliance and a safer road. In terms of compliance, that's an issue that we deal with across the city. We can do a compliance study here after the changes have been made. And through Vision Zero, we're engaging in a lot more data sharing with our police service. So we will flag this location for that.
Thank you. That's great. You're doing, again, you're doing a great job in this area, and I think it's really going to enhance the pedestrian and the driving experience down there. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a mover for this item? Councillor Michaud. All right, any comment before we vote? All right, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have the other traffic calming review implementation. Let's see here, approval. So that's for the Pioneer Tower Road traffic calming review. And we will have another presentation by staff. Welcome, Ms. Hussaini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to the, good afternoon to the committee and the chamber. My name is Farana Hussaini. My position here at the city is Project Manager, Transportation Safety, and I've been overseeing the Pioneer Tower Road Traffic Calming Review. I'm joined today by Erin McCrimmon-Jones, Manager of Transportation Safety and Policy. In this presentation, I'll provide an overview of the Pioneer Tower Road Traffic Calming Review. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the traffic calming review process that we apply to all traffic calming reviews. The process includes 4 phases. Phase 1 is about identifying problems and opportunities. Phase 2 is focused on design. Phase 3 is presenting the preferred solution to residents and council. And phase 4 is focused on construction. The overall process includes a number of engagement efforts, including notification letters, 2 surveys, 1 public meeting, and a dedicated Engage Kitchener page, which is active throughout the entire process. If council approves the staff's recommendations, traffic calming will be implemented in summer and fall of 2022. Next slide, please. So Pioneer Tower Road is a collector road and is designed to collect and distribute traffic from local roadways to the arterial roadway system. This slide shows the study area, which is highlighted in yellow, and it includes the residents that would typically use Pioneer Tower Road on a daily basis. The green color on the screen shows the roadway section that was studied for traffic calming measures, which is between King Street East and Pioneer Ridge Drive. And addresses along the blue color includes residents that are considered directly fronting Pioneer Tower Road. Next slide, please. So this slide summarizes the existing traffic conditions within the study area. As you can see, the 85th percentile speed range is between 57 to 64 kilometers per hour. And the 85th percentile speed is the speed that 85% of all vehicles are observed to travel at or below this point. The average daily traffic on the street is about 1,500 vehicles. This slide also shows the collision history on Pioneer Tower Road. We can see that from 2016 to 2020, there were a total of 3 collisions on the street. 2 of them were single motor vehicle collisions, which typically involves a car hitting a stationary object, and 1 of them was a rear end collision. Next slide, please. Staff conducted an initiation survey in May of 2021 and asked the residents whether they are supportive of initiating a traffic calming review for Pioneer Tower Road. The initiation survey achieved the required minimum support rate. Staff conducted another survey in February of 2022 and asked the residents whether they are supportive of implementing the proposed measures. As per the City of Kitchener traffic calming policy, a minimum of 50% of directly affected residents must respond to the implementation survey, and 60% of the respondents must support the recommended plan in order to meet the policy thresholds. And as you can see here, the final survey response rate for addresses directly fronting Pioneer Tower Road was 44%, which is below the 50% minimum participation threshold. However, the survey showed a 78% support rate. And as a result of this high support rate, staff are recommending that the traffic calming plan, which will be presented in the next slide, be implemented. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the proposed traffic calming measures for Pioneer Tower Road. We are proposing 4 traffic calming measures that are evenly spaced out in order to achieve a calming effect on traffic along the entire Pioneer Tower Road. So the plan includes number 1 is sidewalk widening to 1.8 meters and a road narrowing to 6 meters, where the sidewalk is currently narrower than a standard sidewalk, and that is between Market Drive and Pioneer Grove Court. Number 2, we are proposing a speed cushion between Market Drive and Maple Manor Court. Number 3, we are proposing a road narrowing where the trail intersects with Pioneer Tower Road. And number 4, signage and pavement marking improvements where Pioneer Tower Road intersects with Pioneer Ridge Drive where the 90-degree curve exists. Based on safety analysis and residents' feedback, staff also worked with the Regional Waterloo to include construction of a sidewalk segment that will connect the sidewalk gap in the existing sidewalk between Baxter Place and King Street East. And this sidewalk construction work will be completed as part of the King Street East reconstruction project and is led by the Regional Waterloo. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening, and we are happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions of staff? Okay. Do we have a mover? Councillor Gazzola.
Through the chair.
Yes.
My apologies. There is a delegation for this item. Adam Zimmer.
Oh, I apologize. I did not
okay.
Take note of that. Okay.
Well,
welcome, Mr. Zimmer. Please join us.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry about that. Welcome.
No problem. Thank you very much. I'll just jump right into this, given the time constraint. When I signed up as a delegate, I struggled with the question of whether I was an individual who represented the group. I picked individual, but I spoke with many residents of Deer Ridge who shared my views. They were surprised that I was prepared to speak today, and they were very candid with me and frankly told me I was likely wasting my time. And I asked them why they felt this, and they felt that the process so far has demonstrated to them that the city, in particular the traffic calming department, had already made up its mind to proceed regardless of the outcome. And I didn't believe that. I felt there was still value in coming to speak today, and I was encouraged by John to do so. So thank you, John. And you know, my concern is somewhat voiced by John with the earlier topic, but I think I can add something. Was that, you know, the process has significant irregularities. It contravenes the written policy that was shared with the community. And I feel this has really made the results suspect. And I think we need to reject this proposal. Otherwise, we endorse the fact that we are, you know, inconsistent in our guidance with the community. If we say we're going to do one thing and we do another thing again and again and again, at some point it has a corrosive effect on the view of the city by its residents, which I think is very damaging. You know, to start with, the study area was made arbitrarily small. Guidance was shared at the PIC. that the study area should include areas serviced by Pioneer Drive. As you're likely aware, Deer Ridge is only served by two roads, Deer Ridge itself and Pioneer Tower. If you're in Deer Ridge heading towards downtown Kitchener, Deer Ridge Drive is the main access. However, if you're heading towards the 401 or Cambridge, Pioneer Tower is the shortest route. However, the traffic calming department, as we saw on the slides a moment ago, stopped their survey area after Pioneer Tower Road itself and Pioneer Road Drive. This excluded the bulk of the Deer Ridge residents. To an outsider, this appears to be a gerrymandering of the study area to bias the conclusions. I personally only found out about this process by driving down Pioneer Tower Road and seeing the signage on the road itself. I was not invited to the survey, nor to the PIC. I have found out about them through the webpage on Engage Waterloo Region. Yet obviously I'm affected by these changes here today. I find it telling that even with this reduced study area, there was insufficient support during the initial survey, as outlined. And at that time, residents were assured that if they didn't vote, the vote counted as a no, and it would not proceed. So I think it's very misleading to portray the results as valid when they have insufficient support. You know, when this was pointed out at the PIC, the traffic planning department said, well, you know, we didn't quite follow our process, but we're going to go ahead anyways. And it'll be up to council to sort this out in the end. And to the untrained eye, this appears that the traffic calming department is looking for work. They don't have the support, yet they're going to do it anyways. And so we wonder why people don't vote. And what's the point in voting if nobody pays attention to the answer? Once the proposal was made by the planning department, it was presented at a second PIC. And once again, the planning department indicated that not enough responses were received, the proposal would not proceed. So if you're a resident like myself who's busy with young kids and lots of things to do, and you hear that, hey, if you don't vote, it counts as a no, and you feel you don't want it to proceed, you don't vote. You save 5 or 10 minutes. We have told residents that by not voting, that vote should be counted as a no. So if we want to accurately look at the statistics, we should look at all the number of residences along Pioneer Tower Road, and we should take anyone that didn't vote and count it as a no vote. And if we did that, we would get a very different result than the rosy approval numbers that the traffic planning department has showed us today. In my opinion, the traffic department is clearly biased. To me, this is about honesty and integrity. Will the city follow its own policies, live up to its procedures, and reject this proposal? Or will it allow traffic calming to be jammed through because we have a traffic calming department? That's what they do. If the committee today opts to reject the proposal, it'll send a clear message to the traffic calming department that democracy matters. Alternatively, if the proposal is adopted, my neighbors will have been proven correct, and the city will have demonstrated that their input is irrelevant. I hope this committee is able to make the correct decision today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. We have some questions for you. Councillor Gzola.
Sorry, can you, Adam, thank you for coming in. I appreciate your comments. I compliment you for your activeness. You you work hard in what you believe, and you're to be commended because you're standing up and saying your piece. Now, having said that, I don't agree with you. Okay, that I want to support our staff. I always turn to them because I say they're the specialists. They know they're full time at this, and their experience is better. I know I have many a discussion, many an argument with them, but in the final analysis, I think they have proven me wrong where I've challenged them, and on many occasions where I've challenged them, they've changed. So I totally support them. On this particular case, I heard you, and I was concerned when I looked at it. Yes, we have this 50% rule. Or it's not even from what I'm learning now, it's not even a rule. It's sort of a guideline. But so I looked at the results and I put more weight. I put more weight on the people who are directly affected as opposed to the whole general area. So when you look at the people that are affected, directly affected, we were looking at 52 addresses. Now 50% of that would be 26 addresses. So it's 3 different than what responded. Even if all 3 of those came in and said no, the percentage in favor would still be around 70%. Now you can't, this philosophy of yours that if you don't get out and vote should be taken as an automatic no. There are a lot of reasons, and you've mentioned them as to why sometimes people can't get out and vote. There are a lot of other commitments in our 21st century lifestyles here. So you can't just go by that basis. So what we do is not perfect, but it's as a result of a lot of background, a lot of research, and as I say, I can often argue with them, but I'm totally supportive of them where they're going here. And that was more of a compliment, a comment as opposed to a question. But I did want to support you for your taking part in activities in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Chair Marsh. And I'm wondering if I can ask a question of staff following this
yes,
presentation,
of course.
this delegation. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was wondering, so Mr. Zimmer has presented his thoughts on how the study was conducted. I'm wondering from staff if there's perhaps some follow-up or something else that we can be doing in that neighborhood to maybe confirm or not confirm the results there, and what their thoughts are on that and moving forward from here.
Through the chair, if the question is, should we conduct more surveys, staff's recommendation here would be no. We've done a lot of engagement in this neighborhood through the Deer Ridge Drive process, as well as the Pioneer Tower process. And we have a pretty good sense of the different feelings about traffic calming. And we've done all we can to take in all comments, whether people are directly fronting any of these roads, which is the policy. But we go beyond that, and we circulate and receive comment from all residents within a reasonable area. And we've made a lot of changes based on comments and feedback that we've heard from people who are not directly fronting the streets. So we've gone above and beyond the policy as it's written. As mentioned in the previous agenda item, we will be conducting a follow-up survey and follow-up data collection to understand if and how these changes are working, and if the community is in support of the changes based on the data that we provide.
Thank you, Mr. McCrimmon-Jones. I thought that would be your reply, but I think it's important for the public to hear that as well. Thank you. Oh, and I side with our staff as well. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Madam Clerk, if you can please let Mr. Zimmer back in to the panel. I have a question. Hello, Mr. Zimmer. Listen, I was wondering what you meant when you said that we told residents that if they don't answer the survey, their vote is counted as no. Were you actively telling people just don't vote, or are you suggesting that the city did that?
The city has done that on numerous occasions. They've never been quite as blatant as that, but they put in writing that if not enough people voted as a percentage, it would not proceed. And so as a resident, if I read in writing that if unless 50% of the people don't vote, I cannot vote, and that will make it likely that the city will not proceed. And that's to go back to John's comment. I feel that's what's really misleading here. If the city hadn't said, you know, we need 50% to vote, then you get what you get. If you don't vote, you don't have your view heard. But when you actively go out and say in writing, it's on the website right now, that unless a certain percentage is
okay.
received.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but if you're one household, and I realize that you were not invited to vote, I get that. But if you were one household and you decided, well, I'm just going to count on at least 50% of my neighbors to not vote also, that's a pretty big risk, isn't it? Like, wouldn't you, if you feel strongly about something, wouldn't you just vote one way or the other?
You'd think so, but you know, the silent majority, and as I think Councillor Johnston mentioned, with the provincial election, it's quite common for not a lot of people to vote. So it's a pretty certain result that.
Well, this may be, something that we certainly need to look at this again. I agree with you that if our guidelines are inconsistent with how we end up making decisions, then we need to revisit those guidelines. 100%. I agree with you. However, the city, I just want to clarify for you that the city doesn't have a full-on traffic calming department. We're not going around looking at streets saying, okay, where can we go and calm the traffic? We have people begging from us, begging from all around the city, come and please help calm the traffic on our street because we have accidents, we have, kids are not safe. And so we have this transportation services department, and they use the statistics to decide, and maybe I'm telling you what you already know, so apologize. I'm not trying to be condescending, but basically what I mean to say is only a select few streets get chosen to do a traffic calming review. And I believe I said that last year when we were talking about the Deer Ridge neighborhood, and the number of accidents on the street are concerning. I will say that for future, we aren't mind readers at the city. We can't read the minds of people who don't vote and who don't give us their say. And so I would never, ever suggest to anyone that, hey, just don't vote. They'll just assume that you don't want it. I would caution you. I would caution you and anyone to take that stance. So, but I do very much appreciate you coming in, and I agree that we need to change the guidelines so that is not something that people can think they can rely on. But thank you so much for coming in. I don't think there are any further questions for you.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, and are there any other questions of staff? It's been moved. Councillor Gazzola, sorry, you had put your hand up before. Did you move it?
I intended to move it, yes.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Gazzola. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, thank you very much. I muted myself. All right, next we've got the micromobility bylaw and shared program implementation plan. We'll have a presentation from staff to start us off, and then we'll have a delegation as well. So start off with Mr. Balaban.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry. Good afternoon, committee and chamber. I'm Ivan J. Balaban, Active Transportation Planning Project Manager in the Transportation Services Department. With me today are Rosalind Lusk, Niall Lobley, and Erin McCrimmon Jones. We're here today with a report and presentation on the micromobility bylaw and shared program implementation plan. Next slide, please. Micromobility refers to a range of small, lightweight vehicles operating at speeds typically below 24 kilometers per hour and driven by the users themselves. Many different vehicle types exist. However, the bylaw change in this report focuses specifically on e-scooter permissions as a response to recent changes in the Highway Traffic Act. The recommendations in the report aim to align the city with the region, the cities of Cambridge and Waterloo, to allow a single operator to provide shared micromobility service expected to include the 3 types of vehicles shown on this slide. Next slide, please. This timeline shows a short summary of services and projects that have led us to this point. From 2013 to 2019, there was a community access bike share in Kitchener and Waterloo. From 2018 to 2019, there was an e-scooter pilot project in the city of Waterloo. In 2019, there was a bike share pilot project in all 3 cities. In 2020, a feasibility study was conducted outlining how a shared micromobility service could be delivered within the region. We are now at the point of updating bylaws at both the regional and city level to support the launch of a shared micromobility service. Later this summer, the region will issue an RFP for a shared micromobility service provider. After that RFP closes, we will have a better idea as to when the service could launch. Next slide, please. The legislation and supporting documents that have helped to bring us to this point include the following. The Ministry of Transportation has passed Ontario Regulation 389/19, which allows municipalities to permit the use of e-scooters on their roads and to set restrictions on their use. The City of Kitchener has 3 supporting documents that serve to encourage micromobility. There is a strategic plan action item to encourage and incentivize alternative modes of transportation by developing a bike share program. The city's Complete Streets guidelines include 4 design objectives related to micromobility. And the Cycling and Trails Master Plan includes support for a regional bike share and micromobility program. Next slide, please. The main recommendations of this report are as follows. First, staff are requesting permission to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Region of Waterloo, the City of Waterloo, and the City of Cambridge to formalize roles and to enter into other agreements in relation to the shared micromobility program. This will include a license agreement between the selected service provider and the municipal partners, which will outline the system expectations to that service provider. Secondly, there is a recommendation to permit the use of e-scooters on paved parks trails. And third, there's a recommendation to amend the city's traffic and parking bylaw to mirror the region's traffic bylaw. This change will allow e-scooters on roads with speeds of 50 kilometers per hour or less, roads with cycling facilities, and on boulevard multi-use trails. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We have a delegation first, we have, I see people queuing in. Do you have any quick questions of clarification, or do you want to wait till we're done with the delegations? Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Chair Marsh. Well, I can wait until after the delegations, that we'll have an opportunity to ask staff questions then.
Of course, that's how we'll do it. Yes,
Sure.
of course. And you'll be first. All right, and you will be second, Councillor Michaud, okay? All right. Oh, and Councillor Chapman? Queuing in for next time okay, great. All right, so if I can please ask for the delegate to put your camera on. Welcome, Mr. Schaefer.
Hi, can you see my camera now?
We can see you, and we can see We can hear you and we see your presentation.
Perfect. I'll start. Is that okay, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead. And whenever you want the slide to progress, you just need to say slide.
Perfect. So I'll start now. Thank you, Council, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Chris Schaefer. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs at Bird Canada. Next slide, please. Bird Canada is a shared micromobility company, so think shared e-scooter and shared pedal assist e-bike. We operate in a number of jurisdictions across Canada, and in Ontario specifically, we're in our 3rd year in Ottawa, our 2nd year of exclusive shared e-bike and e-scooter operations in Windsor. Hamilton City Council's got an RFP out that we're participating in for shared e-scooters. Like Waterloo Region, Durham Region in Ontario has also approved scooters on regional roads. Next slide, please. It's the evolution of our mobility offering to municipalities. So we're in our 4th generation Bird 3 e-scooter, and that is our pedal assist e-bike on the far right. Next slide, please. Won't go into detail here. Needless to say, both our vehicles, the bike and the scooter, are robust. They're built for public shared use. They're built in-house. You can't buy these. Come with a whole host of technologies like dynamic stability control steering, anti-tip over technology, skid detection technology, etc. Next slide, please. Talk briefly about smart geofencing. So all our bikes and e-scooters come equipped with speed governors, so we can cap the speed of the devices at the request of the regional municipality. Generally, most cities across Canada cap it at 20 kilometers an hour. Next slide, please. We can create, and you can't do this with personally owned e-scooters or pedal assist e-bikes, you can with a shared micromobility program. So you can create slow down zones, no ride zones, and no park zones. So think of it like an invisible fence covering a certain area or geography. As the scooter or bike enters the zone, the scooter responds. So it would, or the bicycle would respond. It would slow down and come to a complete stop in a no ride zone safely, or it would slow down from the maximum speed to a slower speed, or the vehicle would be unable to be parked in that area. So think of Ottawa, for example, Parliament Hill. It is a no ride, no park zone. Next slide, please. Smart sidewalk detection technology. So in key areas of the city or municipality or region where perhaps there's been a history of bicycle riding on sidewalks, we can geofence sidewalks. So as the scooter or bicycle enters that sidewalk, it slows down and comes to a complete stop to discourage sidewalk riding. Next slide, please. We do that through a host of technologies that were possible on the modern generation of scooters. So sensor fusion, microchips, advanced vehicle location systems. The old technology, if you went back a few generations, would take about 30 seconds or longer, or wouldn't respond at all. The GPS was off. Now with a whole host of technologies and data inputs, we can respond in under a second to the geofences I talked about, including sidewalks. Next slide, please. Talk briefly about parking and how that's unfolded in Canada. Next slide, please. So this is consistent across Canada, more or less. Basically, cities have started with permitted street furniture zone parking, so areas of the sidewalk where pedestrians are not inhibited from walking. They've layered on different things as the seasons or years have gone on. So we've got on the far right, painted boxes with or without bollards on or off street. Bottom left is the hockey mat. It's a movable mat. And basically these have been designed in areas of the city that the built form is challenging. They've supplemented the street furniture zone parking with these sorts of additions. Next slide, please. Layered on top of that have been digital technologies. So we can create the P for preferred parking. It's basically pre-cleared. It gives you instructions in the app. We can incentivize them with a discount on your future trip. In a larger no park zone, far right image, where you can't end your trip there, we can pre-clear certain areas that are compliant with the rules, and you would only be able to end your trip at those Ps. Next slide, please. We could supplement all of that with public education sessions for in-person training. Next slide, please. There's a whole host of in-app rider education, safe street patrols of company staff in uniform, enforcing rules, warnings, fines, suspensions. end of ride photos allow us to hold the rider in compliance. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Got about 10 seconds left. Beginner mode, slower acceleration, and we cap the max speed. Next slide, please. Helmet selfies, we can determine whether someone is wearing a helmet or not, and that would stop or start the scooter. Next slide, please. I've got about one slide left. This safe stop, it allows us in certain areas at certain times of the night. If you can't pass a capture test, the scooter does not unlock. And now I'm actually going to my last slide. I'm a bit over, I apologize.
It's okay.
Community mode allows riders and non-riders to report instances to us directly via the app. And that's the end of my presentation, and I look forward to any possible questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. We do have some questions for you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. And thanks, Chris, for coming in. The technology used for your bird scooter is quite impressive, actually. I guess one of the concerns that we've been hearing about, and I can see that you've sort of developed some form of control with the scooter boat going on to sidewalks. Is there a capability with your technology to determine whether or not there's pedestrians nearby to slow down the scooter?
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question, Councillor. In short, no. Maybe one day. So if you look at shared scooter programs, they've been around for about 4 or 5 years. There's been obviously I think a pretty impressive escalation of technology. What we can do nowadays is, so if you backtrack a little bit, the province requires that we do it already. There's a horn or bell located on the scooter that, obviously like a bike bell or horn, you could warn a pedestrian of your approach. Some cities, Ottawa is actually the only city in Canada that requires it currently. Hamilton is requiring it, and that is, and there's talk about of it being on e-cars and a certain standard, is a sound emission. So while the scooter is being rented, it emits, or can emit, if that's the will of the region or the municipality, a noise. So for folks that are visually impaired, blind, or have their vision impaired, beyond the bell that the rider would have to use as they approach, whether they use it or not, like a bike bell, we can emit a sound on a scooter about, that would at least signify on a regular cadence of an approaching e-scooter, for example. This sidewalk detection technology detects whether that scooter is on a sidewalk. It does not know whether a pedestrian is in or near or around the vehicle.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair Marsh, and thank you, Mr. Schaefer, for coming in today. I'm wondering if you can expand upon the ability for the technology to not be able to be taken outside of its range. We've certainly experienced that before in Waterloo Region with there having been kind of a virtual fence around something, but e-scooters being able to be taken outside of that. Is that something that you've perfected?
Through you, Chair, great question. So I was at Lime at the time in 2018, 2019. So I did participate in the e-scooter pilot in Waterloo. I happen to have gone to Laurier too, so I'm a bit of a local boy. I did my undergrad there.
Me too.
Family, great school, family in the area too. So to answer your question, yes. So for example, we will, let's pick Ottawa, for example, as an example, because it's in Ontario. So we're now in our 3rd year there. Their Ottawa municipality itself is a large, as you know, municipality. Mm-hmm. So the operating zone for the shared e-scooter program does not include the entire legal boundary of the municipality. It's a smaller operating zone, confined largely to downtown. And so we have an operating zone actually that the municipality determines. Some let us determine our own, some determine it for us. So if an e-scooter, for example, we're not permitted to have e-scooters in Gatineau across the river from Ottawa. So what would happen is the e-scooter approaches the boundary. It's an invisible boundary. You can't see it in the real world. The scooter you'd see it on the app and on your phone. The scooter would approach, And once it hit the boundary, the virtual boundary, the scooter would slow down and come to a stop. Now, as a rider, you might be like, gee, I want to go to Gatineau. What's going on here? Two things would happen. There's a screen on the scooter itself as you're riding. There's audible noise. So it's both visual notification through symbols and audible noise. It would tell you, you could look at the screen and say, okay, I understand I've entered a no ride zone. Because the scooter would be stopped at this point safely, you could take out your phone and it would also instruct you that you're trying to enter a zone that's not permitted. That's why the scooter is slowed down and stopped. So yeah, the technology that you would have seen in 2018, 2019 is night and day, years beyond what is possible now. Those were first generation scooters. We're now on fourth generation scooters.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will tell you that I am also an employee of a local university, and how that was an issue. Also, how will whenever someone wants to stop it, they're not going to be able to just, or would they just be able to leave it in the middle of a road, get off of it and leave it? How is that going to work in terms of it? Are they going to have to be docked somewhere whenever you stop them, or how are you going to control for that as well?
Through Chair, it's a great question. So I'll give you a bit of an explanation here. So in certain, again, Waterloo region, if this proceeds, of course, in the various Tri-Cities, would be no different in large respect to the municipalities that have had programs now for years. Calgary now is in its fourth year, for example, of a permanent program there. So if we give you an example of a no park zone, so there would be certain areas of the city or region where we're unable to end your ride, for example. And either we've determined those ourselves because the region or municipality has given us the leeway to do that. So for example, we would automatically do that around Parliament Hill or city halls in the region, unless the city or region told us not to do it. We would draw a no park zone and no ride zone around City Hall. Let's say, for example, Chris Schaefer, I do follow rules, but let's say Chris Schaefer didn't want to follow a rule with the scooter and took it said, I'm going to ride Kitchener City Hall, and that's what I want to do today. They would enter the geofence, the scooter would slow down and stop. So they'd be unable to ride. They could walk their scooter like a bicycle. You know, you can walk a bicycle. That's still, because it's a kick scooter, you can still roll it like a bike. There'd be no throttle or motor. So there'd be no riding on City Hall property. Let's say I decided I want to end my trip here and I don't want to continue riding, and I want to do an area that's not permitted because it's a no park zone at City Hall, for argument's sake here. What would happen is the app would tell them you're unable to do that. You're in a no park zone. Your credit card keeps getting charged. So there's a financial disincentive for that behavior. We find in most instances that is enough to discourage the practice. They'll get notification you're in a no park zone. Here's where you need to go to end your trip in compliance with local rules. If the rider decides, you know what, I don't care about my credit card being charged, I'm going to leave the scooter. What would happen is that scooter then becomes on the back end an abandoned scooter. Now, if it's within the first few minutes, we don't know the scooter's been abandoned yet because the company isn't standing beside that rider. Right? It's not possible to stand beside every rider. So that rider could be in that zone, maybe talking to a city councillor, and is in a no ride, and that's a legitimate activity. They're not riding, they're not parking, they're just talking, or maybe they're tying their shoe and are about to return to a compliant area. What would happen is after a short period of time, the scooter in the back end would be put into an abandoned mode. We have what I talked about, that Safe Street Patrol team with uniforms. They would receive notification on the back end that there is a non-compliantly parked vehicle. They would go to City Hall, and we do this in Ottawa on average response time at 15 minutes. We go in, remove the scooter from that no park zone. Long-winded answer to your question, my apologies.
Well, and thank you for bringing up the Safe Patrol team, I think is what you called them. How many people are we talking for them?
Through Chair, how many people in terms of our Safe Street Patrol?
Yeah, I mean, how many people, you know, if we're talking about this being a safety measure, I'm wondering how many people would be out at a time.
So to answer your question, it would depend on the size of the operating zone. It would depend on the number of e-scooters or e-bikes and or both permitted in a zone. So there's lots of different variables that could factor into that calculation, but I'll give you a rough estimate because it is highly variable. In Ottawa, we would have, and this is daily, I'm talking between about early afternoon to the Ottawa, I believe we had to stop operations at 11 p.m. at nights. They ran until 11 and then they'd run slightly after, but there'd be no riding. You're looking at anywhere between 20 to 25 people at key areas of the city patrolling daily in Ottawa, the larger operating zone. It may be less in a city like Leduc, a town of Leduc, excuse me, or the town of Okotoks in Alberta, where there's only, you know, a couple hundred, 150 scooters and a small population.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Johnson, if you could queue back in if you have more questions. Thank you. I did give you lots of extra time because nobody was queued in, but now we have more questions. Councillor Singh.
No, I don't really have more questions, Councillor Marsh, Chair Marsh. Happy to move it and also comments when we're ready.
Sorry, I missed the last part. You want to move it and then?
Yeah, happy to move it and comments whenever ready.
Of course. Okay. Councillor Johnson, did you have more questions?
I have questions of staff, but I think that Councillor Chapman had been queued in ahead of me earlier.
Oh, okay.
Go into that.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Schaefer. Oh, sorry, Councillor Anitis, do you have a question? Okay, Mr. Schaefer, you have been very informative. Thank you very much for your presentation and for all the answers to the questions. Those are all the questions we have for you. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, are there more delegates or is that it?
That's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to queue in for questions of staff. We have 3 in the queue already, and then Councillor Ioannidis as well. We're going to start with Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. My first question has to do with the no ride zones. Will the city have any input into where those no ride zones will be, or will it be strictly up to the region?
Go ahead. I see Mr. Balaban and Mr. McCrimmon Jones.
Through the chair, the city is part of the region's project team and is plugged in and helping coordinate the requests for proposals that will go out publicly to vendors later this month or early July. And through that process, there will be testing of how well the geofencing works, how well the equipment works, and individual cities will be able to determine which specific areas the geofencing should be applied.
And when we think of, trails through some of the parks that are quite narrow, actually, would those be considered no ride zones in your mind? Or like would the width of a trail be a determining factor?
Yes, I think that could be criteria that we would look at. Our Parks and Cemeteries team will be involved in the process. So depending on the limitations of any specific area, we could apply that on a case-by-case basis if needed.
Okay. My biggest concern has to do with safety, and especially for people with disabilities and on these multi-use trails. So my question would be to staff, does staff have any plan to widen the trails at a later date so that multi-use trails can better accommodate pedestrians and all of these mechanical vehicles that we're now allowing on the trails?
Mr. Lobley?
Good afternoon, Council. Through you, Madam Chair. Councillor Chapman, at this point, no, we would not be planning to widen any trail in the city based on this pilot. We would be looking at the pilot and the change in patterns of use on our trail systems and determining whether any need is required. So at this point in time, the recommendation is that these would be limited to paved trails in our park system and our trail system. Most of our multi-use trails, our multi-use trail standard now is a 3-meter wide trail, which is center delineated for traffic in 2 directions. That's the current standard. There are many trails, however, which are narrower than that, which would still constitute as paved trails within the city. And so that we would have different standards of paved trail, which e-scooters would be able to be on.
Okay, I'll have comments later, so thank you.
Sure, thanks. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. And actually, to follow up on Councillor Chapman's question, I too am concerned about the safety of these being on our trails. Already, we have many people using our trails, which is amazing, but they're crowded. They're often crowded now, and the surprise of somebody coming up behind you when you're walking your dog or something on the trail. Can we look into having the sound put onto the e-scooters, like like Mr. Schaefer had mentioned, that other communities do that? I would hope that either they have the sound activated on there, or that we would require that there is a warning sound there.
Through the chair, that's good feedback and certainly something that we'll take back to the region's project team.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaver had mentioned about them having staff that would be patrolling and I guess enforcing the rules around these e-scooters. How does that fit in with bylaw? And what kind of rules and regulations would be in place for these people doing this policing? I'll put that in parentheses.
Through the chair, so the staff that would be employed by the successful vendor would take more of an education approach or role and ensuring that e-scooters aren't ending up parked in the wrong areas. Enforcement would fall to the Waterloo Region Police Service, and because they're moving violations. And WRPS is being engaged by the region's micromobility project team.
Councillor Marsh, is my time up? I'm trying to.
No, I think the timer.
Okay.
It just didn't get reset. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question with regards to what has happened in other communities like Toronto, where they have put speed limits on their trails. Is that something that we would be looking at doing as well? And is that enforceable?
Through the chair, I would defer to Parks and Cemeteries to comment on that. However, through the geofencing, we can control how fast rented equipment can go, as well as disable any of the E-features.
Mr. Lovely.
My apologies, Madam Chair. Councillor Johnston, would you mind repeating the question?
Yeah, I was just asking that other communities like Toronto have speed limits on some of their trails and things currently, and about whether or not they're actually able to enforce those.
So there's two answers I can provide to that question. Can they be enforced? Yes, they can. So our parks bylaw, which currently governs most of the trail system outside of the road right of way, does provide for us to place a sign and require members of the public that are using those premises to follow the directions on a sign. So we could put a speed limit on our trails. So we can put a sign up, and that sign is enforceable. But the question is, practically, can it be enforced? And the real response to that is probably not. It would require a resource that probably doesn't exist within WRPS or indeed our own enforcement services, and technology that probably doesn't exist in terms of making sure we've got speed cameras that would be able to catch cyclists and e-scooters and so on and so forth. The other question, the other point I'd layer onto this is we quite often think an e-powered, an e-assisted something or other can go fast, and they can go fast, but so too can a cyclist. And you will see this from many other cities where they've done this work, is that cyclists can go fast and can at times go significantly faster than e-assist vehicles can go. So I think there is a conversation to be had around speed, but I think it's worth decoupling the conversation around speed and e-assisted vehicles, because I actually think they're two subtly different pieces.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Maybe we need a fast lane and a walking lane. All right, next, Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. I may have missed this, but how many kilometers is this initially going to start out to be, this project?
Through the chair, could you clarify the question? How many kilometers and what regard?
Like from A to, like, is this just going to go all through all the trails, or what area is this going to be in? Is it region wide? I'm a little.
Through the chair, so the bylaw change to permit e-scooters currently was permitted by or approved by the region, and area municipalities of Kitchener, Cambridge, and Waterloo are now taking those reports forward to their councils. So it would apply to the entire region and to the municipalities in terms of where e-scooters are permitted.
Okay, so they would, at the end of the day, once, if this all, in a perfect world gets approved fast, this would all go through, it would be on all the trails that are paved.
Councillor Michaud, we've got Mr. Reedman also jumped in to answer.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. So technically they'd be allowed on any paved trail or, like the specific areas that are part of the bylaw. The question would be, when the operator selected, how many stations do they put in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, and where the density of those stations are. And so typically they're more in the higher density urban areas around the LRT and other municipalities that have these types of things. And so it would sort of, be more spread out as you get further away from sort of the higher density areas.
And this would just be for the e-bikes that are contracted with the region. It wouldn't be anybody that has an e-bike could hop on a trail and go. Is that correct?
And people are doing that already.
Who enforces? Okay, who enforces that? Sorry.
So I would defer to Mr. McCrimmon Jones to answer who would be the enforcement, but I do know there's a number of people that are already using e-scooters that they personally own in the region and other municipalities as well.
On trails, right?
On trails and roads. I've seen them on roads as well.
So you wouldn't, so that this group of people that wouldn't, they would still be able to be on the trails then. This isn't just going to be for the region's, contracted e-scooters or e-bikes. Is that right?
Who would like to take that? Mr. Lobley or Mr. McCrimmon Jones?
Through the chair. So just to answer the first question there, enforcement would be through WRPS as a moving violation. The bylaw will permit e-scooters on paved trails as per the recommendation, as well as on roads and in bike lanes, which they're currently not permitted anywhere within the city on public property. So this bylaw update will permit them in those areas.
Okay, and one last question. Is the regional police involved in this process of planning for this, or do they just come on after it's implemented?
Through the chair, the region's project team is engaging with the Waterloo Region Police Service in terms of the updates to the bylaw and to keep them in the loop about timing and when we might start to see this e-equipment on our roads if approved by council.
Okay, thank you. I'll stop now and have my comments later. Do I key back in now, Sarah, Councillor Marsh, or should I?
I've taken note that you want to comment later, and so we'll cue back later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Singh for comment?
No, for a question.
Okay.
So to staff, just for a better understanding, how are e-assist bikes classified?
Councillor Singh, can you please turn up your mic or move closer to it?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. How are e-assist bikes classified differently, or are they the same classification?
I don't know if Mr. McCrimmon Jones, you could hear him. I couldn't hear.
Through the chair, I think clarity is being asked about how e-assist bikes are being treated through this pilot.
Right.
So I will highlight that the provincial pilot is specific to e-scooters. So we are not recommending any changes to our uniform traffic bylaw as it relates to e-bikes. Currently, as per the HTA, e-bikes are permitted on roads and in bike lanes, and we're not currently recommending any changes to that. The primary reason for that is because of a reclassification of e-bikes that's currently happening at the provincial level by MTO. There are a lot of different types of equipment that classify themselves as an e-bike. For example, certain moped style equipment of different sizes, different weights, and the region is waiting on that reclassification to be complete and more clarification from the province before permitting e-bikes on trails. Once that reclassification is complete, the region will likely recommend additional public engagement to understand how residents are feeling about the e-bike equipment. I will add one more thing. Through a regional council direction, staff were instructed to include e-bikes in the request for proposals because most vendors, the package that they provide does include e-bikes, and we may limit the type of vendors that we get if we were to exclude them. So there are certain things that we can do, for example, using the geofencing, that those e-bikes, the e-assist would be disabled when it entered a trail area.
So outside of what's allowed and not allowed, scooters and bikes have been prevalent in the community for some time now. How many incidents have we observed, or issues raised on our trails, on the city of Kitchener right away?
Through the chair, my apologies, I couldn't make out the question.
The question is about incidents of e-bikes on our trails. Do we have documentation about that, Mr. Lobley?
To you, Councillor Marsh and Chair Marsh. Sorry, Councillor Singh, I didn't quite catch the question in its entirety, but I think if you were asking about how often are e-bikes using our trails, e-bikes are regular and routinely using our trails on multiple times a day. So we are aware that e-bikes are a common form of transportation being used on the city's multi-use trail network at this point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I just have one question. I'll have a comment afterward as well. I didn't actually see it in the report, but are we aware whether users will be able to bring their scooters on the ION with them? Has the region commented on that?
Through the chair, yes, our understanding is that they will be permitted. The e-scooters do have a feature where they can fold up to a more compact size. They do not currently fit, from our understanding, on the front of buses, for example, where bikes would go, but they can be brought on board and folded up into a smaller size.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that question, Councillor Schneider.
I'm comments, so I can wait.
Okay, you got it. Councillor Johnson, more questions?
Yes, thank you. I had a question with regards to our cycling lanes. It's been an issue before.
I'm so sorry, Councillor Johnston, I apologize. You know what, let's hear from Councillor Ioannidis first, because he hasn't had a chance. No? Okay, he's giving you his time, his spot in the queue. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, my question was about whether or not people would be able to ride these in the cycling lanes, and actually if I can ask about motorized wheelchairs in the cycling lanes at the same time. Is that allowable?
Through the chair, yes, micromobility equipment are permitted in cycle lanes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Councillor Ioannidis.
Chair Marsh, I'm just comments.
Okay, are there any further questions at this moment? Okay, so we've got comment starting with Councillor Singh, then Chapman, Michaud, Davey, and then Schneider and Johnston. All right, so we're going to start with Councillor Singh.
Before I begin, can you hear me okay this time?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, thank you. All right. I was tired of having the camera right up in my face, so this is probably a little bit easier on you all. Happy to move this. I think this is a good direction forward, and I think it's a unique partnership with the region of Waterloo. This council, through our transportation staff, we have continually engaged and moved in a direction where we want to make sure and encourage our residents to find alternative modes of transportation from vehicular options. This provides that. And at the same time, I think this is additionally a good equalizer for mobility and affordability for transportation. So I realize that there are concerns. I realize that there will be problems, no different than having vehicles on the roads, which can be a sense of liability and concern for personal safety. But again, this is moving forward with the times and allowing for technology to allow for aspect of transportation at a lesser cost or greater connectivity of our community. Additionally, from the questions that were asked, and I think staff helped clarify, it's no different than having bikes on our trails. It's no different than already having e-bikes on our trails, even if they may not be allowed. And it appears that we haven't had too much incidents so far. The very least, I think we can rely on technology to safeguard or limit many of the concerns I have laid out already. And I think the presentation addressed many of those technology features that can be utilized. And more importantly, I think we can continue relying on technology to address other issues that may arise as well. So I think this is the right step forward and a good partnership with the region of Waterloo. And I would hope to see a good adoption. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. I just want to remind, I see a lot of engagement. We've got a lot of people ready to comment, and let's do it. But I just want to remind committee that between us and our break is our comments, and then we have a long evening ahead of us. So let's just keep it in mind as we move forward, please. Councillor Chapman, you had said you have comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think this is a great eco-friendly means of transportation, and I support it. I do like the fact that we could have a sound on the e-scooters. I think this would be a really important addition. And I would hope that the city ensures that it has plays an active role in determining the no zone areas. And I do worry about how the multi-use trails are used, and I hope we keep a close eye on safety concerns, and if necessary, we make adjustments to ensure that they are safe for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Michaud, you're next.
Thank you. It is a commendable project. It's timely. It's right up with all the other active transportation things we're doing. However, I am really concerned about the safety of pedestrians on trails. And since the pandemic, our trails have been used like tenfold from what they were before, and they continue to be used for walkers, strollers, dogs, even little kids on tricycles. And I just I'm concerned that we're starting something, and I'm hearing that it'll be enforced by Waterloo Region Police. Our police department is already taxed with the speeding of cars on roads, let alone e-bikes going where they're not supposed to go, or illegal e-bikes, or however it works. But and I'm not convinced I'm going to support this yet. I'd like to still see some more. I'd like to see some more work done before I give this my support, just for the safety reasons of pedestrians.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next, we have Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Pardon me. I'm actually very excited to see this before us. In trying to get people to move to alternate transportation, I think there's one group that wants to sort of incrementally make it less convenient for people that drive cars, whereas I think a more positive approach is to provide better alternative opportunities like this. When I think about cycling, it doesn't fit every potential usage. It's more difficult to bring a bicycle on the ION route than it is to fold up a lightweight scooter and carry it on with you. Cycling sometimes requires that you take a shower when you get to your destination, where if you for example, you're going to work, whereas an e-scooter might absolve you of things like that. So I'm also excited not only because of where we are now, but as some of what Councillor Singh touched upon, this is just the beginning of what the technology will have going forward. There's all sorts of great technology that's coming out in terms of, Councillor Anand has mentioned it, like pedestrian detection, that sort of thing, where scooters would automatically slow down in the future. So it'll just become more and more safe as it goes forward, and it's a fantastic thing for the environment. So I'm very happy to support it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. A lot of good points already made. I just wanted to pass on my observations of traveling on the Iron Horse Trail. And I see a lot of great behavior. I see cyclists, I see people in wheelchairs, I see rollerbladers, I see joggers, I see people just out for a walk, people with strollers. Everyone gets along, everyone's looking out for each other. And as Mr. Lobley says, just because this is an e-scooter doesn't mean it's going to go fast. So from all the other great points, just adding those, looking forward to supporting this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. I know this is really exciting initiative for our community. I know with Economic Development Committee, this has been in discussions for some time with e-scooters, and with the delegates' presentation today, and I was very impressed with the technology that's used and what's going to be coming in the future. And as many other members of council or committee have mentioned, the benefits to compare to cars is aplenty. And you have your excellent accessibility, health benefits, the ability to store these and move them around, but more importantly, they're cool.
Let's not forget the nice mic drop. I love it. Councillor Johnston, you're next.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. Boy, it's hard to follow that, the coolness factor there. Thank you. And thank you for letting me ask so many questions today. I do have a lot of questions because I have kind of been through the previous pilot project, which did have certainly its bumps along the way. In terms of this being a way of getting more cars off the road, and in terms of accessibility to people who need to get around and can't afford a car, et cetera, that this is, it is good. I am concerned about the safety issues that I brought up, especially on the trail. I'm concerned about perhaps being used in the bike lanes and things as well. And the sound, I think they absolutely need to emit a sound so that people will hear them approaching them on trails or sidewalks, etc. Because I've had that happen when I've been walking the dog before. So I think that's going to be really important. And if we can make sure that we're going to do a deeper dive into this and that we will be looking at it after it's implemented to see how things are going, I think it's going to be really important. But I am cautiously optimistic and will support it. Thank you.
All right, that's not what I thought I'd hear from you. Thank you. So thank you to all of you for your comments and your engagement on this topic. I too am in support of this cool and innovative project. I hope that we can see lots of uptake. When I saw the results of the Engage Waterloo Region survey and noted that we still have a vast majority of the people who responded who drive alone, let's get more and more people out of the cars and onto a scooter or eventually an e-bike safely and without getting in the way of pedestrians. Let's become a more active community with our transportation options. I think we have, I'll borrow a term from Councillor Gazzola's favorite term box is it's a no-brainer. So thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to say all in favor. All right, and and that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, we had some information items on our agenda, but we have taken those from the agenda and they will be brought back on the 20th. That day on the 20th, I don't know how many hours are in that day. I hope there are more than 24 because we have a lot of things we've put on that date. But that concludes our meeting today. Thank you very much. We'll see you all back here on a new channel for the planning